Basketball Jones, I got a basketball Jones, I got a basketball Jones, ooh baby, ooh.
Kane is in the building.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
What time is it? Sloan in the corner for the win!
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
Now Myers to win the league, yes!
And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Stand and
Well, hello and welcome to the Below the Rim show, a show dedicated to the BBL. It's me, Pabz. We're not joined by Ads at the moment. He said he was up for it, but no one's heard from him, so hopefully he's well and safe. He did this at the BBL playoff final, vanished. No one heard from him for a week. But we are joined by our northernmost correspondent, the brave-hearted Mr. Grant Young.
All right, how are we all? We're all enjoying this super summer already?
Good, so much for the quick intro. We're also joined by the media guru that is Mr. Paul Nicholson. How are you, sir?
All right, my lovely.
There we are. The regional responses. I sent out a little WhatsApp to the group in order of getting things underway a bit quicker. Should we just do like a one-word response to your intro? But obviously,
all right, then.
Based on where you're from. So ads we were hoping would be like, hey up.
And the racist stuff was coming out of Scotland.
Yeah, well, for you, I'm gonna mute you and play the clip of Mrs. Doubtfire. Hello.
Terrible.
Good. Well, that's the stereotypical racism out of the way. Let's we've got that. That's done now. We can back chat that. That's finished. Let's move on. We're going to talk about a number of things tonight. We'll talk about BBL teams going into Europe, or maybe BBL teams not going into Europe. We'll have a little chat about the Giants. Ads isn't here at the moment. Maybe if he joins, we'll be able to get a little bit more on that kind of lack of news sort of thing. But we'll start things off with the. Oh, by the way, we're recording this on Sunday night. This isn't likely to go out until maybe Monday, Tuesday. So we're recording this Sunday night. So if any big news things do pop up, they're not going to be in this show.
No, in our luck, it'll be first thing tomorrow morning now.
Yeah, first thing tomorrow, it'll be all Giants news, won't it? Anyway, we're going to start with the kind of news. I'm not sure if it's been announced officially. It wasn't announced officially, but then everybody knew it was official that the league has decided to take it to 6 overseas players from 5. I say the league, it's obviously it's all got to be voted on and whatnot. And that was the decision to move it to 6 overseas players instead of 5. There's been plenty of fallout on the socials. Plenty of people with lots to say on it. Some negative stuff from the kind of development people to a degree. Some meh kind of stuff from a lot of people, and a lot of let's kind of see what happens and where this takes the league to a degree. But Mr. Grant Young, sir, what did you make of that first of all?
I think I'm in between the meh and let's wait and see what happens, considering so many teams for a number of years have kind of taken the rule and bent it in so many different ways. Sharks had, 2 legit Brits this season or season past in their roster?
Yeah, they were the ones mentioned quite a lot.
They were the kind of bottom end guys. Is it maybe also a bit of a kind of understanding of, well, if we're trying to increase the quality of our league, we've maybe not got the number of quality British guys yet who are maybe going to be playing not just kind of filler minutes or just be 9th and 10th man. That's maybe an understanding that actually we don't have the depth yet of British talent. There's loads of guys we're hearing going to different colleges, playing in Europe, coming through their own clubs, but maybe we're just not at that stage yet where we can legit have 4, 5, 6 contributing Brits on one roster, and then almost the Americans supplement the British guys. Okay, up here we were maybe blessed for a couple of seasons where we had Kieran Achara, Ali Fraser, Gareth, who were probably 3 legit starters who all happened to be from this country. So the Americans were supplementing them as such, whereas probably in most cases it's the other way around.
Yeah, that's fair. A lot of the time, well, you can only got to look back through the MVP list. There's an awful lot of an American influence on that. Nicholson, my man, what did you make of it?
Obviously, nothing's been made official, so it's all very much. That's what we presume is happening because that's what people have talked about now. But I'm kind of with Grant a little bit, and a little bit more. I think that the problem is deeper than just not having quality Brits, because I feel that there is quality Brits. I feel that the problem may be financially, historically, there's not enough money to contribute towards the quality Brits at a level all round, right? Because if you look in D1, if you look in overseas, that there's plenty of players that could bump up to BBL, but they've got the choice of maybe earning more money at D1 and playing a bigger role than less money in the BBL and playing a lesser role but still being impactful. I think there's a lot of that involved in it. I think Grant's right with, you look around, there's always ways to twist it, right? If you look over different teams over different years, Rotino, Del Pesce's, let's be honest, Sharma, Kimball McKenzie, Sean Shelton years ago for Raiders, and I remember in Patriots. These are guys who have British passports, right? So obviously the ruling is you've got a British passport, you're classed as a Brit, but realistically, they're not what you would call true Brits, right? They're not, but we understand how the rules work. Maybe you could go around every single BBL roster and you could actually take away 2 players from each roster that probably aren't up to BBL standard. So I think that's something possible. So bringing in an additional American, that's what, 6 Americans and potentially 6 British players, so half and half on each team if you fill your 12 spots, right? So if every BBL team could find 6 quality BBL Brits who have the ability to play BBL, and each team had the finances to pay them, then I'll be really impressed.
I think there's also there's also a thing where I think still we've got the stigma where a lot of even low mid-level Brits are coming out of, say, college or playing in like D3 Spain or Germany, who think that's a better option for them for playing in like the BBL. And I think there's maybe a lot of players like, no, if I go there, I've got no chance of getting out. But the league's only going one way. You just have to hopefully one way when it comes to the games. I think it's going to be good.
Well, you got money up there now.
But it's still all like, if I'm thinking with my league hat on, parking gladiators for this discussion. Like, I've heard of people like players like with clubs that their agents saying this is a good situation. Like, I think you should look at it, and they're just, no, I'm not going to the BBL. And that's because they've got the stigma of maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago where it maybe the pay wasn't good. But look how many players play in Europe and not get paid. Yeah. Brexit won't help a lot of these guys, that you'll end up seeing them maybe having to play D1, D2 just to stay almost relevant.
Well, that was, he's not here, but that was one of Adz's point, was that now British players are going to find it harder to get gigs around the rest of the world because of Brexit, because they're now classed at the same level as an American.
Correct, yeah.
And one of Adz's things that he was messaging about was that now there's effectively less, because this was one of my points, was if the rosters went 12 deep, then I've got less of a problem, because like you say, it's 6 and 6. However, they don't tend to.
Well, but why? With the clubs, what's the reason they don't?
Well, it's the money, isn't it? The clubs that can't afford to run out as much. So if we take that first of all as face value, you're going to have potentially an overload and less room for these guys to come home and play in this league.
So what realistically it's doing is taking away, when you look at how the clubs are now, 12 British players potentially. But it doesn't have to take away 12 British players. If you're good enough, you play. Yeah. Right? These coaches want to win basketball games. Every coach in the BBL wants to win a game. They don't want to lose. They want to be competitive. They want to win games. So if you're good enough, you'll play minutes. period. Whether you're flipping French, German, Scottish, English, American, whatever. If you're good enough, you'll play. It's the developing talent is probably what's going to be more affected with it. You know, your academy students, your university students, your young Brits who are trying to come up through and maybe get few BBL minutes a game and they train with a BBL team. It's those guys that probably be impacted more than anybody else.
I think it's just... Pabz, what's your thoughts?
Well, are you ready? I'll get your reaction on most of these, but I've got a list of points, as it were. So, I mean, at face value, it's going back to what it was, isn't it? We had 6 foreigners.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
A number of years back, so it's kind of that. You know, my initial reaction wasn't good. My initial reaction was, "Oh Christ, here we go." But I'll get to that. So, my first kind of real point on it is, it's like when I have to explain to my wife when she's driving in terms of speed, whether it's 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, or 70 miles an hour. It's a limit. It's not a target. Teams don't have to have 6 overseas players.
You try
they might not be able to. Yeah, they might not be able to afford. Well, she thinks that's it. You've got to do that. If it's 70, you've got to do 70, and probably does more. But we'll cut that out. But that's my point. Is it's a limit. So teams don't have to have 6 overseas players. From that respect, maybe it only really affects the Lions and the Gladiators, who could potentially afford 6 overseas players. Other rosters may not have that luxury.
And I suppose, how do you feel about that? Back that up, look at somewhere like Cheshire. They pack out their roster, their 5 Americans, and then probably rely on a couple of British guys, like people like David Elf and Hudson, who are maybe also doing other jobs.
Didn't a guy rock up for them who could hammer threes down and had a really good game? What was his name? Young British guy.
This season?
Last season.
I'm not sure.
Graham?
Oh, Robbie Graham or whatever.
Robbie Graham, yeah.
But this is the thing, right? Like, it's a really good point. Right there, you've got a team with 2 players who aren't even full-time professionals. So I think the biggest problem to tackle before we worry about how many flipping different nationalities are allowed in the league is actually making every single one of the players paid full-time, right? Surely.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, yeah, up here we had Fraser Malcolm working as a PE teacher. I think Kyle Jimenez was doing other things. Ali Fraser had a 9 to 5. Like, all our homegrown guys, full-time or better homegrown guys, are all part-time pros as such.
Yeah, so that's a big leap. So the fact that it's gone to 6 on paper doesn't look great in terms of, you know, taking up roster spots for British players. But teams don't have to field 6 overseas. I said the point about if rosters were 12 deep, then I'd have less of a problem because obviously, you know, 10. If you're only going to field 10 and 6 of them are overseas, then you've only got 4 slots left for your Brits. Whether or not, you know, there's an issue with some of the better British players being unaffordable or whatever that is, maybe that's something that will come over time with investors and whatnot. One of the big points for me was, and it's looking ahead to the next season and the next season. I'd probably be okay with this if I didn't know one key thing, and that is that they're trying to sell to an American market. So to me, I'm looking ahead instantly thinking, okay, 6 this year, next year 7, the year after that maybe 8, or maybe they just say 0 restrictions, potentially.
And my naivety comes out in that one, Pabz. Is there restrictions that, because it's not England, is it still England basketball that does all the visas? Is there something like, or is it not?
Maybe, but I don't know if they can say you can't have any more Americans.
I just wonder if, I don't know how it works in terms of that. I think that would be daft, but I know there's that. Well, you've just increased it to 6. What's stopping 7, 8, 9?
Yeah,
I know. I get that, but hopefully not.
But the only other thing that kind of leads on to that is the Premiership seems to be the for many, not for everybody, but for many people that talk about it and many people that are in the know, use the football Premiership as some kind of yardstick. And to that I say fuck off, basically. Because I've said it in our group chat, I think the Premiership is the worst thing to happen to English football. I said since the Second World War, but I'll change that to since the Highswell disaster and British teams being forced, they couldn't play in Europe anymore, got kind of left behind a little bit. And maybe it's been kind of warped a little bit because the England football team made a final, but they had the luck of the draw and didn't actually play anybody until the final. So, but that's the only worrying comparison, and the fact that ultimately the company in charge wants to make money, and I get it. It's a pro sport. You should be trying to turn a profit and make money. But Premiership's the one end of that where making money is the priority and development is kind of secondary. Because if you look, most of the lower teams, I'm a Charlton fan, most of our youth players get snapped up by Premiership teams, never play in the Premiership, and then they go playing abroad. So like Lookman, who went to Everton for 6-7 million, whatever it was, got loaned out by Everton. I think he played twice for Everton, and then he ends up playing abroad. Obviously, this is, we're not a football podcast per se, but the worrying thing is that there's a real shift now towards making the BBL more of a Super League, and we lose the emphasis on development.
Say even on that, then, if they're good enough, they play. If they make you win games, you play them.
This is where I would then love, and I think it's Dave Forrester that kind of talks about this as having like a BBL development league, under 23s, under 21s, whatever it may be, and if teams are all having like academies, and there's a lot of talk about clubs doing their whole pathway. Bristol put out a diagram. We know Eagles do a lot in the community. They'll be working up on that. We know Leicester do a lot. London are talked about doing their own academy stuff. Well, let's get an academy. Let's get an academy or an under 23 or whatever league going. And okay, money talks. Money's not always able for this to work, but why not have that as like almost like the BBL's G League or D League type thing as well? Have a junior pro league underneath.
Does anybody have a concern that is essentially, because let's be honest, the NBA isn't necessarily concerned with development, doesn't have to be, never has had to be, because the school system in America is elite. So there's provisions on every sport from in high school, depending on what high school you go to, but generally speaking, basketball is one of the bigger ones. But so you're going from high school to college and then college straight into the pros. It's not something the NBA needs to concern itself with. They have the G League for players who are trying to make the NBA. Arguably, players in Europe are now surpassed that. For the Euro League and the Basketball Champions League kind of level, players can go from that to the NBA and compete. And to be honest, I think that in some cases the salaries are comparable as well. When you look across the different levels of NBA and Europe, they don't really need to worry about development as such. Anybody concerned we might end up being a development league for NBA rather than our own kind of English players, British players?
Okay. But then do we not?
Not right now, no.
Yeah. I don't know. And is it a worry? But isn't every league kind of a feeder to a bigger league somewhere?
I guess.
But then I know you're saying about if it becomes a league where it's just Americans over local guys or British guys or whatever, then that'll be the interesting one. But then does it then give a chance for young British players to maybe get in the spotlight of the American market, the American teams, and maybe it's an opportunity there? I don't know. Glass half full approach there. Maybe it creates an opportunity for a young British guy to get on a training camp or a summer league squad. Like there's been NBA's Matthew Brangham Manning's been NBA summer league in the past. Okay, he came from straight out of college and did that, but maybe did a couple of seasons. There's been other British players.
Actually, Hamilton, I think,
maybe gives that opportunity, but
it'd be helpful. Maybe every BBL club has an affiliated MBL club, whether that's in D1, D2, D3, right? Because I know they're meant to have a pathway, and a pathway can be very different multiples to a pathway, like what you can consider as a pathway, whether you've actually legitimately got a pathway or you're borrowing somebody else's and don't actually have an affiliation. But if every BBL club had an MBL club, it's up to those clubs then to figure out where they're going to be. Are they going to be 1, 2, or 3, depending on how much effort they put into it? And there is a place then to develop junior players, younger players, and potentially put them up into the BBL. You're saying about the NBA, like 1% of NCAA college players get to the NBA.
Yeah.
1%. The rest of them go off to Europe, to GB, to wherever, right? They're all elsewhere. And 1% is not great as a percentage. There's a lot more young players in the UK that go into...
I was going to say there's probably even less percentage of those kids are British.
Yeah.
But then this is the thing, I guess, what I'm hoping for as things unfold is balance, a bit of balance. So yes, we need the American players. No, I wouldn't even say American players. I'd say literally overseas, because I would like to see some more European players in the league. Some of the players we had last season, on that Lions roster, some of the European guys there were absolutely amazing. I'd like to see some more of that, but at balance, some kind of. I'm not sure if big time, because from what you understand, from everything we read statistically, basketball is the second most participated sport in the country, and at some point that's going to translate into the professional league. And I'd love to see more Jamel Andersons, some more Miles Hessens, who actually don't go the American college route. They play domestically. If that takes them to Europe, fantastic, like it did for Miles Hessen. Jamel Anderson's had an amazing BBL career and a gold medalist now as well.
Yeah, they were at the top of that level, right? And you go lower down that level, like Corey Samuels, he went off to Italy before he came back to Bristol. Yeah. He could have easily gone to a prep school or a D3 or a D2 college or whatever. But he went down to Italy, lower division, and he's back in the BBL.
Can't guard Ramon Fletcher, but yeah.
There it is.
It's not topical anymore. It's not topical anymore.
Fletch bomb has been.
I'll tell you what. Actually, there's something else I was thinking about today. It's slightly off topic, but thinking about the kind of, because there's been a lot of negativity regarding the perception of our league until 777 came along, which is obviously that everyone shits on it, everyone laughs at it, and then when players actually come here, they're like, "Well, this is legit. This is a good league." But in terms of progression, I feel like, and it's literally since Ramon came in the league, 2014, there has been a steady progression. Things have been getting better and better and better. The standard of player, the competition between teams, sharing of the silverware to a degree. Obviously, at that stage it was Eagles, then it was Riders, but then we saw a Wolves team come through. We saw the Eagles come through when they were written off. And all that. Things. Yeah, so it's. I resent the implication that it wasn't growing, which I think was mentioned on one of our last shows.
I think also
it certainly was, but it's obviously the rate of it now is insane.
You also just you said there about maybe since players like Ramon. But Ramon. Oh, it's Sunday night.
Can we have a siren that goes off every time Pabz drops a Fletch bomb?
No point. It'd just be that siren. It'd just be that siren. Congratulations to him, by the way, for the announcement last week. I think it was back to Green Bay where he started off.
Well done, sir. But it's since guys like that, like, let's be honest, every player talked. I remember talking to guys pre-joining the Rock/Gladiators for this season, that they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so, I know so-and-so, I know this person's played in the league, I was at college with this person, I played high school with this person, so yeah, I know the league, I've heard some really good things about it. And that map's getting bigger, that kind of pool of players is getting bigger, where more and more
network,
people with our league. That network, that's the word, that network's growing and growing and growing, and the word's getting better. Like, you had Christian Keeling, the COVID season, he was the Rock's best player. He played high school or stuff state with Al Durham. So when he knew Christian had played here, Al reached out to him and he said it was a brilliant place to be, Glasgow. Like, it's amazing just how people are connected, even though, like, to be honest, America's a huge-ass country. But so many players know each other so well.
Yeah. There you go. Anything to add on this before we move on, fellas?
No, I think that's well covered.
Good debate.
Yeah, good.
That's a wait and see, isn't it?
let's move on to Europe. The fight across Europe. I used to do that when Lions first went back into European competition. They ended up in Europe Cup, wasn't it? FIBA Europe Cup. I tweeted a picture of Vince McCauley in black and white with a 10 helmet on from the Second World War with the March on Europe. Not woke in the slightest, I guess. How do we? Have we had any confirmation as to who's going into Europe yet? Obviously, we hear Lions, no doubt, will go back into it. Flyers have signed up for the Northern Hemisphere European League thing, which I'm not mad about. Gladiators are supposed to be potentially throwing their hat in the BCL ring. Leicester have taken a bit of flack to a degree on social media and various outlets for not committing to anything. We hear that another team may be trying to go into the same competition as the Flyers. I've heard rumours about that. No, not who it is or anything. Just another team may do that. Where do we stand on teams in Europe? Grant, my man.
Obviously, very exciting for the Gladiators. Obviously, if you listen to my Steve catch up on Gladcast, he basically said, "Yeah, it's happening. It's just waiting on confirmation of levels and waiting for that. And depending on where the women go and the men go, he was leaving that to more of the basketball side of operations. So that's one that I was hoping I'm hoping that we hear soon. Might hear this week, might hear next week. I suppose we'll wait and see because it's a big story. Obviously, London will do what London do. Bristol, I kind of made a joke about Bristol going into that level, but you know what? They're giving it a bash. They're looking at how much, like even just saying cost of going to wherever they're going, how many different flights, blah, blah, blah. It allows them to, I suppose, know the kind of economics of what they're doing. On the Leicester thing, Leicester's the one where I was like, we should be, I'm of the opinion we should be striving for clubs competing in Europe, but it's not on the extent that I want clubs to go bust, clubs to struggle financially. And I think if we get to a situation where what is the intention, like surely we want all our clubs to want to win and to compete and to do well in league and European competition, then yeah, and the fact Leicester, let's be honest, only really dipped their toe the last couple of years. They've not dropped down after losing was it they played BCL qualies and didn't drop down? Is that right? Or was it the other way around?
Well, they did.
Or there was a Euro
they
Cup.
did that last year. They did it. They did it previously as well, but I think they did drop down and they lost that as well.
Yeah.
The very first time they went for it, which was like 17, 18.
Right. Yeah, they dropped down. They lost that one. Yeah.
But they opted not to this time for cost, and the reason was cost that they gave. Yeah.
So I get that and I respect that, but it was like we should hopefully get to a stage soon. If we're talking about the projection of the league, that cost shouldn't really be a thing. I would be interested to see how much a European journey costs for clubs. And it's probably something that us here, we might not find out. But it would be interesting to see what support's out there. I know the Gladiators have talked to FIBA, the league, no doubt probably talking to Lions to work out logistically, how did it work? And yeah, I suppose it's an exciting time for clubs competing, having 3 clubs compete in Europe, but it's like, well, hopefully it's all within our means.
Nicholson?
I think the more the merrier, no doubt about it. I think clubs have got to be completely, they need to be completely prepared financially. There's no point in doing it otherwise. I don't see the point in going into Europe, whatever level of competition, if you're not prepared and not equipped financially to see it through. Right. So if you're not, if you're entering Europe, you've got to be prepared and equipped to go the whole distance, to the final, right? Regardless of the competition. Bristol's route's really, really interesting. I actually applaud it. I think that's a better way of dipping your toe into Europe than what potentially some, teams have done in the past. Let's just go in there and see what happens. Bristol have gone, let's go in at a different level. Let's get used to the logistic side of it because none of us have done it before. It's going to be competitive. We're going to travel. We're going to have to manage our roster differently. But I presume at the level that they've gone into, it's probably a little bit cheaper than where the Lions were regarding to travel costs and whatever else. So I kind of like that way of doing it. I think it's a good kind of measuring stick, let's say, to what's to come, because they're going to build and are building a big arena, and they're going to want to compete, right?
How cool is it though, having teams compete in Europe, playing against some of the best or big names?
We're having this conversation. You know what I mean?
Incredible, yeah. How 6, 7, 10, even 10 years ago, we're not having this conversation.
No, and it was always pressure on Leicester to compete.
We were 30 years ago.
Yes, a lot.
You remember that, Pabz?
Yeah. Good old days of the Korak Cup.
There was pressure on Leicester to go into Europe for many years because they were dominating the BBL. So what else is there to do than to go into Europe, right? So there was a lot of pressure on them to do so. Now there's not so much pressure on them to do that because London are dominating the BBL, so you're expecting them to compete. Gladiators have obviously financially, more than prepared to compete in Europe. So, after listening to the Gladcast, it's going to be really, really interesting to see where that takes them and the signings that they bring in. And Bristol, I think, are doing it the smart way. I'm all for it. I think it's a good move for everyone. It's a plus for British basketball. It makes being recruited into the BBL a lot more appealing. So no, game on, fair play.
There you go.
What do you think?
One with you guys. I can't really get mad at teams for not entering it if they genuinely, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. But in terms of Leicester, I like to a degree that they prioritise the league because that gives the league a lot more credibility in that sense. Not to the detriment of obviously trying to go into Europe, but again, they've tried it. I think to a certain degree in the past we've got it wrong. We've gone into these competitions because a team has dominated the league or has dominated in, domestically, and they've gone into the European competition. And the reality of it is, and I think the Flyers are the only team that are doing it right at the moment. Obviously, the Lions are an anomaly because they can afford it. But and Vince said this quite candidly, quite openly, until you can afford a competitive roster, and by that I mean the lower teams in the lower European competitions have rosters that are at the very least worth £3 million. Until you can start to put that level on the court, it's only going to be an expenditure to you. It's only going to cost you money. You're not getting anything out of it in terms of victories. Your fans, to a degree, because none of those games, well, maybe not, maybe some will be, but none of those games usually exist on your season ticket. They're an extra cost. Although Brighton Bears did one year.
There'll be a lot of sponsorship involved for a lot of this cost. I'm sorry to just stop you there. Please remember what you're saying. But
gone already.
There was. I remember when at Raiders there was one sponsor I've never heard of, a huge European company that the Turks were involved with, and Raiders were getting paid like every time that advertising board was put on a court. So we flipping took it to away games, right? Like there is companies that will pay big money to have an advertising board over Europe or on the jersey or whatever, which will cover a lot of the costs at these levels.
Is that that's a retrospective thing, though? I guess that's in terms of building your roster. Was that the kind of money that would afford you enough good players to compete?
Yeah.
So it was millions. They were going to pay millions.
Not for the whole roster, obviously, but if you're talking a player,
this is what we're talking about. You've got 2 or 3 players. It's no different to now. Yeah. I guess in that sense, financially, you might, depending on what company you can get sponsorship from, you might break even. You might turn a profit, but I don't know. It doesn't feel to me like it's the right way to do it, as it were.
So something that
to go in and prop up the things.
But then it was something that Steve said is like you want to be in it to compete, and you want to win. And I kind of like this. He was like, but this is one thing he said about playing the Lions this year. He didn't mind losing to the Lions because it allowed them to see the level. It allows you to, if you don't go in, then you don't know how you compete. You don't know your level. You don't know how you're going to get on.
True. Yeah.
By going in and even maybe winning a handful of games or no games, you then know, okay, well, we need to do better at X, Y, and Z. And that's
so maybe that's why Leicester haven't gone back in, because they have done it. They have dipped their toe in it, and they know how far off the mark they are.
Potentially, yeah.
And they know that even at this stage, second best team in the country, by a little way, let's be fair as well. They were comfortably in second. It wasn't, Flyers were tugging on them for a lot of the season, but they held on through that.
Yeah.
And were clearly the second best team in the league. And even at that standard, they know they can't. They know they're not quite there yet. Maybe it's that. It's just playing devil's advocate.
No, absolutely, and that maybe comes down to not having the same investment as what Paul was mentioning about maybe that's Leicester not going out to the market to look for those investors. I don't know. It might be they're just happy with what's happening. They're happy with kind of being one of the top 3 teams in the BBL and getting through to a couple of finals a year, and that's fine. That's okay. But is it worth the risk of seeking that increased budget to push on and be a kind of bigger name in basketball terms? I don't know. I agree with you, Pabz. I agree with you.
I guess the exposure of it could lead to better investment, but the team things that you want to invest in, you're going to want an element of success, whether it's winning 5 out of 20 games. They're not going to want to see their brand on a consistently losing team. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are. Maybe they're in it for the long run, and they're not just in it for the money. Who knows? But I do think the Flyers do it the right way. I don't expect any team that enters into from the BBL that enters into European competition, with the exception of the Lions, to do well per se. Still support them, and watch those games. In fact, I'm probably not going to watch the Lions in the league next season, but I will watch them in Europe. Just because that's the only time you're going to see them tested, and that's the only time you're really going to see them.
Watching every single Gladiator game with your new Loch Ness tattoo.
I'm coming up.
Messi's going to be on your arms.
Eagles fans, I'm coming to Newcastle as well at some point. I want to get a game there. Definitely. Done Leicester. Want to try and get around all the teams if possible.
Jump on the team bus, mate. Jump on the team bus.
Yeah.
Come sit next to me.
As long as I'm not driving it.
You'll be critiquing the bus driver's driving, wouldn't you?
That happens, actually. That does happen.
You'll be sitting behind them.
Oh, wouldn't have done that.
You'll be sat behind the bus driver saying, hey, I drive a double decker.
Fuck Sam Decker. I drive a double decker. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
Oh, we need a below the rim t-shirt of a double decker bus with you driving it and us all in the seat somewhere.
That's a good idea. Listen, we're on the verge of sorting out some merch. I saw BBL Daily's even beating us to doing merch now as well. But we are getting closer. Socks actually as well. We're getting there with team socks.
I just want a hat. That's all I want. This hairline's receding. I need a hat.
It's hard work tennis coaching in the sun, isn't it?
I've got tennis coach tan at the moment.
See, Murray's game was postponed.
No, you won it. You won.
Did he win in the end? I was at work. I saw that come through.
Yeah.
We're potential Wimbledon podcast coming as well. Below the rim.
It's going to be a great below the rim special, that one, isn't it?
Oh, I reckon we could do 20 minutes a night on a British game. Especially if Murray has some of them late ones like he did last year that go on to about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and no one's allowed to go for a piss. Yeah.
What are we talking about basketball again? Oh,
yeah, sorry. sorry. But yeah, right. I think we've anybody anything to add on Europe, and we'll move on.
All good.
Good stuff. Right. Last topic I've got, I don't know if you guys have got anything else you want to chat about, but it's the Giants. Now, I realise that it's early in the summer There's been some announcements. There's been some leaked announcements, shall we say. But we've had pretty much nothing on the Giants thus far. All we know is that Vince, McCauley and Nigel Lloyd are surplus to requirements there. Which I think I find it a little bit of a shame to a degree, because whatever you think in terms of Vince's coaching and his style of play, the guy manages to kind of get things done behind the scenes, if you like, as in that sort of GM role. Look at the roster, regardless of how that season turned out. Look at the roster he managed to put together in Manchester. Look at what he managed to put together on that Lions league-winning team with Ladarius Tabb, bringing Justin Robinson home.
Brandon Peel.
Brandon Peel was a very good player as well. Brought Ovisoko as well. Let's not forget that. Brought Ovisoko to London. The Liggins season with the roster they had there, Kevin Ware, and he had Matthew Bryden-Manning, but should probably have held on to Matthew Bryden-Manning, to be fair, because that would have been amazing. That team with a solid centre. Fairleigh Hodzic was first played under Vince. Whatever you think of him regarding his tactics, so to speak, the stuff that guy does in terms of GM has just been, it's always exciting. It's always got that sort of Jackie Moon ring to it. Any fans of semi-pro, just he can make stuff happen. And Nigel Lloyd is just a BBL legend, one of the greatest players ever to lace him up in the league. Was still training with the Lions squad, as was Robert Youngblood. But sorry, the Giants squad. Robert Youngblood was playing with the Lions squad. I find that a shame. I'd like to see Nigel Lloyd maybe pick up another gig somewhere around, but it's unlikely, I guess. I don't know, but that's all we've had in terms of news. We know they're going to announce a GM at some point. We know they're going to announce a coach at some point. They're going to announce investors or buyers of the club at some point. But I don't know. What do you guys think? First of all, I've got some other things on it, but Grant.
Who's going first? Paul? You go first, Paul. Go for it.
Go on then, Nicholson.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's like, no, it's hard to have an opinion because just shit, you don't know what's going on.
Okay, speculate the shit out of it.
Well, I have a list of speculations.
By the point this gets published, could all be
one of them be out.
Go for it, Paul.
Do you want my list of speculations, and then I'll get reactions from you of what you think on that?
Like, I think.
No? Okay. I'm doing them at some point. Yeah.
No, do it after.
All right, go on.
What I will say from like working with Raiders and that all going tits up, right? And obviously working in Patriots and having to really graft to achieve what we want to achieve. This shit takes time, right? So I understand that. And if you've got no staff, who the hell's going to tweet about it, right? Let's be honest. If you've got volunteers, if you've got volunteers as your media team,
yeah, very true,
and they're not there anymore, and your coach is gone,
the GM,
the assistant coach is gone. Shit, who's gonna tweet about it? No one.
I have a question for you, Nicholson. Actually,
Go on.
I'm assuming that Paul James and a lot of the other coaches around the league have already started at least recruiting or trying to recruit. Is that fair to assume?
Yes, that's fair to assume. Yes.
Well, this is the worry: is that they haven't yet. So if there's no GM, I mean, there's no social media volunteers. If there's no GM, there's no coach. At the moment, there's no recruiting going on.
Maybe that's what Ads is right now. Maybe Ads is watching tape.
Sorry, he is. Yeah,
Ads watching tape right now.
Ads is the secret scout.
He's watching tape of a 19-year-old Slovakian 3-point dynamo.
No, there's.
But can he lace the great shoes? Can he? Don't know. I don't think to impress. Sorry, Paul. Sorry.
If they're not recruiting right now, if there's not someone doing it that we don't know about, right? Because who knows? There could be.
There could well be. Yeah. I realise that. Yeah.
There could be someone who's like, right, we're investing in the team. I know who my coach is going to be. You start getting your players. Nothing's been publicly announced yet. We still got some paperwork to sign, but just do your thing. And once the paperwork's signed, we can really start ticking the list off. right? So that could be happening. Or if it's not happening, there is still time.
Do you want some speculation and rumours?
100%.
Oh, go for it.
So the first rumour I've heard is that there is potentially a European coach going to come in, Spanish guy, some sort of link with the Spanish national squad. Potentially could be GM as well. Who knows? What do you think of that, first of all?
Mate, I'm multicultural. Let's do this.
Paul's basically French and I'm Scottish. Let's go.
Yeah.
Where is Brewdog made?
Aberdeen, sir.
There you go.
Ellen. I've got an auntie that lives in Ellen. True story.
Second thing is that there's going to be an investment, not as big as 777, but a hefty investment into the Giants.
Cool.
Ads isn't going to like that, is he?
More the merrier. Yeah.
The next one is that it will be 777 buying the club because no one else has invested, and it will be them that will then own the Lions and the Giants.
Okay. If they do that, it might not be a permanent thing. It might be, right, let's keep the club going because we want a club in Manchester. Let's invest until we find the right person rather than just the person.
Or a person. Not easy to invest outside of London. But anyway, Grant.
No, I'm not sure in that one.
There's one more.
Ooh.
The last one I've got is that the Giants obviously owe considerable amount of money. That the club will go through liquidation completely. That'll be done, finished, and the franchise will start again as a new franchise. Still the Manchester Giants, but effectively it'll still be 777 that are doing that initial investment.
Liquidation would make sense. I guess.
thought they were doing that. After.
Yeah,
well, I thought there was talks of liquidation, but then that might be liquidation in terms of literally trying to. I'm not sure what assets you would have because you don't own a venue or anything like that, but you sell off what you've got.
Who would own the name?
This is the other thing. Someone would have to buy the name from them in terms of.
Well, you'd have to buy it all from the liquidators, don't you? So
yeah, exactly.
So the name, like literally, speaking from experience.
I was going to say you've been through this. Yeah,
everything goes to the liquidators from wages to, like I say, so from wages to hoops to mascot outfits to basketball. I don't know what you're laughing about. To basketballs to like everything.
Only two basketballs,
kit.
maybe.
No, so
training kit,
merchandise,
whatever's left. Yeah. The merchandise table. Yeah,
everything goes to the liquidator.
adds a seat.
Yeah, the chair that the person behind the merchandise table sits in.
Whether the liquidators sell that as
the merchandise selling person.
Yeah,
a human's got to be worth a few quid, isn't it?
Volunteers.
If they sell it as a complete package or they sell it individually, that's up to the liquidators and any
people. Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, I'm of the opinion
human trafficking.
Would that be new for the BBL? Have we done this before? Have we not had dodgy Australians in the league before?
I think that has been like this actually. Can't remember.
Talking to Australians, big win for the Bombers this morning. Big win for the Bombers. Beat their arch rivals, the Carlton Blues. Fuck them, done them, easy.
Go on, Bombers.
All in the third turn. Just took off all our star players in the fourth, didn't need them. Anyway, sorry. Start doing an Aussie Rules podcast, I think. We'll get Josh Wiltshire back on.
So, my takes on the Giants is I wouldn't be surprised this is all done behind the scenes right now. And we're joking about person, but it's all done. You know what? They're going to have a full roster already probably signed. Coach probably already confirmed. If he's the GM, he's the GM too. New owners from wherever. It'll be interesting to see where their money comes from.
Macedonia.
Well, as long as
I'd love it if it was now. That'd be so funny.
That would be what an absolute brilliant bit of speculation that would be if it was just the Macedonian president.
We're talking dartboard style, like put names on a dartboard and chuck a dart at it.
Because let's be honest,
Venezuela.
Venezuela. That's quite a rich country. They just don't know what to do with their oil. But
There you go.
the
Invest
sheikhs
in
are really
BBL.
coming. Maybe that's the way they're going. No, it was mentioned in the Discord about who would you get in? But like the basketball world's huge, in terms of coaches.
And this is always the BBL problem, right? Because when you're looking for a coach, you're like, which out of the 7 coaches that are available shall we look at? So there is a lot more basketball people in the world. It's not just the 7 that are in the UK.
So it's gonna, it'll be really interesting to see. And you always like the women's gladiators team getting Miguel Ortega. Like he's like once you hear that name, you go and Google him, and you go, okay, you look at him. He's got a massive, brilliant resume across Europe and in Spain. And he's coming here. So all it takes is someone like that to say it's a good thing. And hey, there might be other coaches from that part of the world to venture here. All it takes is one.
To be fair, it's probably Troy Deeney.
Well.
It's probably Troy Deeney. Troy Deeney
said he's buying a team, did he not? Did I miss? Have we got another one?
There was another one. It was Troy Deeney and who else?
Fucking Houdini.
Alan Iverson.
LaMelo Ball was in London the other day, wasn't he? Let's get him in.
Mate, what a waste that was, Alan Iverson coming to town and no one... They just kind of snuck him out again. No publicity for the BBL whatsoever. Fucking brilliant.
They've combined forces.
I've enjoyed the Welcome to Wrexham, the Ryan Reynolds and Rob McKenney. That's absolutely brilliant. And do you know what I like about them is they've not come in and tried to change anything other than trying to get that team up.
I'm going to a wedding in Wrexham in a couple of weeks' time.
Oh yeah,
got family that live there. Yeah,
this is how much we know about the Manchester news. We're now talking about Grant's wedding that he's going to.
I've got a wedding on Saturday in Edinburgh too. If you care about that, wedding season. Right.
Fellas, any other business before we leave and finish? For a nice early finish for us. It's not even 10:30 yet.
Because we just talked shite for 51 minutes, haven't we? Because actually, no news has happened.
I've got to save the date to put out there for everybody.
Oh,
might be a bit far for you, Grant, but
I struggle to get my street sometimes. So
first, well, I say not first, but Plymouth's going to be Plymouth's biggest 3-on-3 tournament to date. All right, 26th and 27th of August.
Oh yeah.
Anyone who's listening, save those dates. It's going to be a massive tournament. Men's, women's, juniors. Where we're playing it
Monstars?
is...
Monstars? Are they coming?
The Monstars, I hope so. We might have maybe even a gold medalist or two may rock up.
That'd be good.
But where the location is it's called Plymouth Hoe, Grant. And don't twist anything what I'm saying. Plymouth Hoe it's called.
HOE.
Right by the lighthouse overlooking the water where Brittany Ferries goes off to France.
Fucking windy.
A bit windy, yeah. We might.
There won't be many 3 balls going up.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that situation. But they have like MTV concerts up there and everything else. So it's going to be big 3-on-3 event, DJ, entertainment, food stalls, all sorts of bits happening. So if you are a 3-on-3 basketball player, save those dates and we'll get some more news out soon.
Sounds good. Will my media pass get me access to all areas?
I know a guy.
This is cool.
I know a guy.
Be a chef for the day just to get in.
Should we get Pabz on commentary? Pabz and Busey on the mic.
Oh, mate. Busey, the legend. I saw him the other day. I finally seen what garage he works at. It's out towards out the Tavistock Road, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go.
I saw him, but it was too late for me to wave. I was on my bus. So there you go. Any other business, Grant, my man?
Nah, just if you, after listening to this, fancy listening to some gladiator-based content, check out if you've not already done so, thank you to those that have, and thanks to all the lovely comments again. Check out the kind of Steve Timoney update if you've not already done so.
Good man. There we are.
What about you?
Oh, I've written a few blog posts. Have a look at that. Pabz Thoughts on WordPress somewhere. I don't know what the address for it is. Just go on my Twitter at Pablo Chigs BTR. Few little posts on there. There'll be, obviously I've written a lot about stuff that's happened in the past in terms of BBL events and whatnot. But when the season's, they're hoping to keep it going, and then when the season starts, actually start to blog about some narratives and things, and probably some stuff that we'll talk about on this show as well, which could be good. I'm full of hay fever at the minute. It really sucks. But I would like to throw out there an opportunity for anybody who wants to advertise on our podcast. We're open for business in terms of sponsorship. Send us an email, hello@belowtherim.uk. If you've got anything you want to plug, or for us to do a live read through, we can do that kind of stuff. Well, that'd probably be me.
Maybe
these guys
a couple of food companies.
A couple of food companies.
Yeah, and like they'll send us like stuff that we can review.
Oh, some free stuff. I'd rather have money than free stuff, but yeah.
No, okay, fair enough.
Times are getting hard.
Just throwing out there. Contra deal.
So yeah, there's that. If you want to do that, because I think we're on about 500 odd listeners a week, which is pretty. I was quite chuffed with. So thank you very much for everybody at home for listening. I don't think it's enough to do a Patreon account. It'd lose money anyway, because we have like 4 members, and I'll have to send them free stuff every month.
You're in a position now. You can verify your Instagram account now. Did you know that, Pabz?
Well, I'm not on Instagram enough.
$11.99 to get yourself a blue tick on Instagram these days.
Is that a month, or is that just a one-off?
No, it's a month.
Fuck that! I literally can't afford that. I'm on the limit.
I thought I was famous because all these blue tick people started liking my stuff, and I'm like, hey, all right, let's go. Oh, apparently you can pay for it. Okay, fair enough.
Anyone can do it. Yeah. Never mind. There we are. Anyway, that's it from us. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. And we're not going to be back, I don't think, for a week or so at least, because that's why we're recording this on Sunday night, because I'm working earlies next week. There's no chance of recording at night. The week after that, I'm away. And the week after that, is it Wimbledon the week after that? We might just hit up the Wimbledon pods next.
Isn't it Father's Day on the weekend as well, boys?
Oh, Father's Day this Sunday.
I'm in Centre Park.
Week today.
Are you?
Yeah.
Perhaps when? Hold up a minute. Whoa. When?
This weekend.
I'm going to Longleat on Friday.
Yeah, so am I.
Centre Parks.
So am I.
Yay!
Are we going to be at Centre Parks together? Yeah. Fucking hell. Oh, Jesus.
There needs to be a live pod done in the Centre Parks Cafe.
There's no chance of that.
Get a paid
my wife would kill me if
me
that
and Pabz in a car going through the monkey place at Longleat, like monkeys on the roof. Like, that would be great.
Oh, there we are.
That's so funny. Do you need a ride, mate? I've got some space in the car. You're like,
you have not got enough room for my 3 girls' luggage, if I'm honest.
Fair.
My car's barely not got enough room for that. Yeah.
Grant, you fancy a trip, mate?
Fuck, as I said,
just down the road.
I barely leave my street. My work's around the corner. I've got you guys on the internet. What else does a guy need? Gladiators moving.
You don't want to come look at the Lions with me and Pabz on.
Not this week.
Good stuff.
Give me a bit more notice next time.
Right, fellas, thank you for joining me. Everybody at home, thank you for listening. We'll be back probably for Wimbledon, maybe one before that. If there's any big news drops, we'll try our best to get something out there into the basketball stratosphere. Jesus, we're on an hour. We're on an hour. Perfect. Let's finish it there. Right. Thank you very much. Till next time, take it easy. We'll speak to you soon.